All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's about 5:02, and I can see our attendees coming in pretty steadily. My name is Kevin Green. I'm president of the Midtown Alliance, and thank you for joining us for Let's Talk Midtown. We wanted to focus this afternoon's program on public safety, and we're going to limit the discussion to about 45 minutes. So we're going to be really focused, and we asked for a number of questions to be submitted in advance, and as much as possible, we're going to really structure the conversation around what we think you really need to know and around the questions that you posed. So welcome Major Spann, our Zone 5 APD Commander. She is currently taking a SWAT call. Yes, this is happening in real time. Denise White is also joining us from Atlanta PAD, the Policing Alternatives and Diversion Initiative. Thanks for being here, Denise. And Brad came in right under the wire here from InTown Collaborative Ministries to talk about the success of efforts and partnerships to address homelessness, both in Midtown and InTown Atlanta. And our own Marcus Neville, our Director of Public Safety. So we know that what we're looking at for the balance of this year is going to be a year of transition, really like no other that we've ever experienced. We're excited to move forward. I think the combination of warm weather and increased availability of vaccines makes it kind of feel better. I hope you're experiencing some similar vibes here. Among the questions that were posed in advance were what's going on with new development and capital projects. And so first, I would refer you for any questions you have regarding both new development and capital projects. Our website is a wonderful resource. The resource pages are there. There's a monthly newsletter we put out on 2 different platforms. There's a monthly business and real estate report, all of which are really great resources. So Brian, you can go back to that first slide. But in terms of new development, there are 10 new development projects that are currently under construction that will deliver this year in 2021. And I'm not going to march through each one specifically, but they include 712 West Peach in the upper left-hand corner, which is Portman's third office tower on West Peach Street, which will be occupied by Anthem. The Marriott Courtyard Element Dual Hotel next to the Fox by Noble. 1105 West Peachtree Street by Seelig, which is office, residential condo, and the 180-key Epicurean Hotel with a host of amenities. You might have seen today, just today, a few minutes ago, Google confirmed a massive expansion in that office building. Google will now be taking 19 floors of that building and occupying about 500,000 square feet. So, you know, very exciting announcements between this. We got Atlantic Yards, which is the home to Microsoft's AI and cloud services it'll be delivering. You know, they've just announced 90-acre purchase at Quarry Yards. It's been a challenging year, but a lot of very exciting announcements. Norfolk Southern's global headquarters will deliver. We've got the student housing project that occupies the rest of that block that'll deliver. Emory's Linden parking facility, several other expansions will also be coming, cutting the ribbon this year, in addition to 8 other major projects that remain under construction like Midtown Union. We got a few questions on Campanile at 1155 Peachtree Street in terms of what's happening. Obviously, development has been somewhat dormant, well, very dormant for a while. We talked to Dewberry earlier today. They are in negotiations with a new general contractor. Their hope is to have somebody under contract within the next month, and they have again confirmed that they have every incentive to get this project moving. So hopefully we'll see things turning shortly. We also got some questions on new development, and in particular the new multi-family development on Juniper by Middle Street Partners, which is a pretty dense project for the east side of Juniper, about 470 units and 2 potentially phased towers. In sum, that project will be back to the Midtown Development Review Committee next month. If you've got questions, I would say for any new development project, go to our news center. You'll get comments from the Development Review Committee immediately after they are submitted. If you subscribe to our business and real estate report, that information will come to your inbox the day after every Development Review Committee meeting. And if you've got other questions that aren't answered in the DRC's written comments or other things, I encourage you to reach out to Carl Smith-Davids on our staff, KARL@midtownatl.com, and Carl should be able to help you. Other questions about capital projects? Again, our website is a wonderful resource to look at, but if we've got about 17 projects with committed funding of about $40 million, and we're working hard to get them done. In the balance of this year, the following projects will be delivered. First, 15th Street Arts District Plaza in partnerships with Cousins. This project, construction contracts in place, materials are on order. Next, 10th Street Park enhancements. This is a temporary park in partnership with Dewberry that I'm looking down on right now. Construction was delayed due to a sinkhole. We've got a contractor selected. Work was to begin this month, and the sinkhole has redefined itself. So we're waiting on the city to come tell us what we need to do on that. Hopefully soon, but it's going to be a great project. Spring and West Peachtree, as a part of the quick build bike lane projects that are underway. We'll be completing these parklets later on this year to repurpose some sections of street parking that are no longer accessible to cars. And then lastly, this guy is going to be hopping into Midtown later this year in partnership with the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, and a median at 10th and West Peachtree will be his new or her new lily pad. So coming in May. Also under construction this year, Commercial Row Commons, all plans are approved. It'll be under construction. It just won't be delivered until early 22. The Art Walk, another substantial project, will be under construction this year. This section between 10th and 11th in partnership with the Federal Reserve Bank. Permits have been approved. Construction permit is expected by early June. It'll also be under construction and currently is under construction between 12th and 13th. Piedmont is another long project, 15th to Ponce, $5 million project. Final plans to be approved this month, construction later this year. And then lastly, Juniper tipped into city procurement last week. It's a $9 million project. Will be under construction later this year, 14th to Ponce. We're also notified yesterday that the 15th Street extension between West Peach and Williams just secured a $2 million federal grant, so we're happy about that. And lastly, I think as many of you know, and we talked about it the last Let's Talk, towards the end of 2020, we kicked off what we call the Heart of the Arts program, which is another effort to really bring forward a message that we hear frequently from discussions around the district about the fact that public art in particular is really essential to creating an engaging civic life and the kind of sense of community we're trying to foster. So foundational chapter, we featured 7 artists. They worked with us to transform empty storefronts into public art with a message. I hope you've had a chance to check them out. One of those artists is Amanda Pingbody Pakia. She is an Asian American artist and an Atlanta native. And as you can see right here, her artwork appeared on the cover of Time magazine, released just yesterday. So the picture on the left is her piece of mural installed at 10th Street, facing 10th Street, as she was painting it in late 2020. And here is her art on the cover of Time magazine. It's a story around anti-Asian violence, as you can see. We found Amanda's focus on women and communities of color and human rights and nature and science to be perfect for this first chapter of our Heart of the Arts program. So I think, I hope you'll take a look at the Time magazine article. It's a real testament to the meaning, the deep meaning behind what otherwise might be viewed as just a pretty picture. So next step with this program is artists actually in residence creating art in vacant studio storefronts and other places where property owners make them available. So with that, we're going to turn to public safety, and I'm going to kick it over to my colleague, Marcus Neville.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. And as we start, let me say it has been a transformational year, as Kevin mentioned, and we're looking at many changes around here. And as we look at public safety, it's important to look at what we've seen recently in the media and elsewhere over the past 12 months, we've seen a large increase or a big increase in crime across the country in the major cities, and Atlanta is no different. As we look at Atlanta, crime doesn't spread throughout the city evenly. There's different crime in different portions of the city in different amounts. And as we start talking about our area, it's important for you to realize where we exactly cover and where we're discussing. So Atlanta is a large city, and we have 1.2 square miles for the Midtown Improvement District, or the MID. Basically, that runs from the south end just below Fox Theater, going up north to the Peachtree Bridge, and then going over from the connector to approximately Piedmont Park. And Piedmont Park's not in our area, but we work and they're partners with us, and we cooperate back and forth all the time. Over the next few minutes, we'll talk about the challenges in Midtown is not really the violent crime. The challenges we face are much different than that. Your chances of being a victim of violent crime here is very small. In Midtown, our biggest challenge is property crime. That makes up about 94% of all of our crime in general, and that's been the same over the past few years. It's nothing new to our area. Year to year, we're 92 to 95% property crime, and right now we're still sitting at 94%. Last year, we ended 2020 with a 2% overall increase in crime, but with all the media attention and all the focus on increasing crime across our nation, we only increased here 2%, and violent crime was actually down 6%. So as we deal with statistics and look at that, we want to deal with your perception and how we approach that and make sure that you feel safe here. In the recent few months, our biggest issue has been stolen autos. They have really increased in our area, and as we look at that, during the second half of last year into now, it has been increasing. We've been trying to make sure that everyone understands it's completely preventable, but we'll get that in different slides in just a minute. As we talk about the violent crimes, it's important for us to realize, as I mentioned, you're not likely to have violent crime affect you here in the Midtown area, but it is always possible. So we want to make sure you guys could put the content and context to what violent crime is here in Midtown. Usually it's a victim and a suspect who already know each other, and then an argument ensues and it escalates and it becomes like a domestic situation, or it involves two individuals who typically have a reason to engage with each other, whether it's at a club or a store or something happens, and then it escalates into an altercation, and then one of them pulls out a weapon and we end up with a violent crime, or something else changes. A lot of those surround the clubs, and they surround late night hours that I'll discuss in just a minute. Stranger on stranger crimes in the MID are very rare. It's not likely, it's not what happens, it's not what occurs. So far this year, we have no murders in the MID. We typically have 1 or 2. We have 8 aggravated assaults this year, and you got to keep in mind aggravated assault for perception wise, or for your understanding, is anytime anybody uses anything to be a weapon. So that could be a gun. It could also be a plate. It could be a water pitcher. It could be a shoe. There's all kinds of examples we've run over in the past few years that show what aggravated assault can be. So of the 8 that we have had this year, 5 were club-related incidents that occurred between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. 2 incidents involved people who knew each other, were involved in a relationship of some kind, and was indoors in an apartment. And then the last one involved a store clerk who basically had an altercation with somebody who tried to return an item. He ended up firing shots, whether on purpose or not, and hit the person in the foot as they were trying to leave the store or on the property. As mentioned briefly, a lot of our violent crime has surrounded nightclubs in a certain area of Midtown, and the nightclub activity can be a problem. Many of the incidents occur from what we call irresponsible or bad operators. The clubs, we work with them, we try to make sure that they're doing the right thing, and at times things can happen where they're not operating correctly, and we have to make sure that we're always engaged with them. One of the 2 primary clubs that we've had issues with changed their format and their hours. We worked with them, APD worked with them, the property management worked with them, and finally they came basically what we would call under control and are good actors, and everything seems to be going smoothly. The second one who's a bad actor in our area. We have tried to work with. We've had many meetings with them, with everyone involved with their property, and at this time it's not going well, so they're being evicted and the property owner's pushing them out, so hopefully they'll be gone soon, and we will see a difference in our area once that happens. Another effect that we've seen in our club area is we're in a pandemic, and a lot of crowds will gather inside these clubs and it will become overwhelming. The governor's executive order, which put a maximum occupancy in the bars and clubs at 33% or 50 people, depending on the max capacity for that building, began to be enforced recently, about a month to a month and a half ago, by the Atlanta Fire Department as well as Atlanta Police Department. They did a great job. They went from club to club routinely, doing their checks, whether or not they would give a warning or citation and escalate it. But at this point, unfortunately, about 2 weeks ago, the governor signed an executive order, and now that's not enforceable. So even though we're still in a pandemic, we're going to have to focus on other ways to make sure that we keep everything under control at those locations. And we'll be looking at city ordinances that violate other things, because a lot of times we see them have lane closures or sidewalk closures that they shouldn't have. So we always try to make sure they're operating correctly. That makes it a lot safer for everyone here in Midtown. Our other violent crime tends to be pedestrian robberies in our area. We've had a few of them this year, and the best way to look at it is last year we only had 17 for the entire year, and that was down 35% from 2019. So far this year, we have 12 pedestrian robberies. Now, while that seems a lot, putting it into the actual realm of what's going on out there, 9 of the 12 were late night, many near clubs, and from 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. If you're walking in Midtown, the best thing for us to tell you now, when you're walking and you're out and about and it's between 11 and 5, pay attention to your surroundings. Make sure you're watching your vehicle. Several of these pedestrian robberies have been people approaching when you're going to your car and you have keys in your hand and you're distracted. They'll pull up, they'll get out, and they'll demand your car. We don't want that to happen to you, so pay attention to your surroundings. Now, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, property crime and thefts is our #1 issue. And so far in sheer volume, it adds up and is a lot of our issue here. As we look at the larceny from vehicles, people breaking into the vehicles themselves, that is a huge issue for us. In 2019, 988 firearms were stolen, and the #1 issue is people leaving items in plain view. The fact that they're in plain view makes them very susceptible to being broken into, and we have a clean car campaign flyer that we would love for people to distribute, and we have it available, and we'll hand it out to everyone if you just let us know that you need it for your building or your business. Going to the next slide, as we talk about stolen autos being our huge issue on the increase, in the first 10 weeks of this year, we have seen 82 stolen vehicles, where last year during the same time period, we only had 26. As we look at the next slide, you can see 70 of those 82 were either running or had keys left in the car. 64 of those 82 were actually left running and illegally parked on the roadway. If you can imagine, they're just parked on the roadway, Peachtree Street, West Peachtree. Somebody looks for the opportunity of a crime, they jump in and they take off in it. And then going further, 56 of those 82 are food deliveries. During this pandemic, people have really started using DoorDash, Uber Eats, all kinds of deliveries, and they are notorious for leaving their cars unlocked, unattended, and illegally parked. And basically, it's like saying it's a free ride. It's totally preventable. We just need to educate and make sure they know this. Now, that ran us into our next detail that we started. We started looking at, while this is happening, the stolen vehicles, the congested traffic, as well as first responders being able to use the north and south corridor of Peachtree Street. And we noticed there was a lot of congested traffic because people would just stop their car and get out and go into a business. So far, 1,209 citations been issued, over 2,400 warnings given, and we've ended up meeting with all the managers of the major companies who are blocking the roadway, UPS, FedEx, the Postal Service, and they've all agreed and met with us, and now they're going off of the roadway to the loading docks, and it's been working out much better. The next slide is kind of a look at what we can do if we all work together. Last year, our total Part 1 crimes was 1,189 in the MID. 553 of those makes up 85% of what we call there was items in the car and it made it an easy target, so they were broken into, totally preventable. 155 of the stolen autos were left running or keys in the car, totally preventable. That's 708 of the 1,189. That's 60% of our crime we can cut through education and not being a victim on purpose almost. The next slide, as we get ready to introduce and go down our list of people, a lot of our focus is on the homeless in our area, and we want to make sure that we're focused on them so that we can reach out to our partners, get them the help they need. We conducted an event here. You can see the numbers there. Our partners are awesome. They do a great job, and we're able to get them help and hopefully get them off the streets and get them the help that they need so they can get off the streets. And you guys can help us by calling us here at our number, 404-817-0500, and we'll put them in touch with our partners and get them started down that road. We'll also assist them because our officers have been trained on trying to figure out what they need and what kind of help they need and where to push them. Next is I'm just going to go quickly over the different factors you guys are already familiar with, the courts, the jails, the signature bonds, increased use of food deliveries we just talked about, and then the number of APD officers on the street all affect the crime that's going in our area. Short and keeping it quick because I'm running tight on time is our overall program itself. We have public safety officers who are civilians or security that are kind of like force multipliers for APD. Those, along with our off-duty APD officers, run 24/7, 365 days a year. We have 2 of them on duty patrolling our 1.2 square miles on top of the zone officers. And we usually run approximately 750 hours plus a week in extra patrols beyond what they do. We also do parking deck assessments. So anytime you need to know if your lighting is right, what you need, what can make an improved enhancement in security for your area, let us know. We'll be happy to come out and do that. And lastly, we like to thank all of our partners because that's the #1 issue that helps us be successful and proactive and make it a safe and vibrant area for you guys to come and join us and see the streets. And we have to tell you, the city is alive, Midtown is alive, it's going well, we're open, people feel safe out there, and we're out there engaging with them constantly. Now, if I can, I'd like to take the opportunity to first thank Denise for joining us. She's with PAD, and she's going to give us an update on their expansion, their new referral system, and tell us all about their program. Denise?
Thank you so much, Marcus. Had some slides. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to talk about PAD and just give an update on where we are in our first quarter of our expansion plans. Next slide, please. All right, so for those of you who don't know, we at PAD, our main goal is just to reduce arrest and incarceration for people who are experiencing quality of life issues such as substance use, mental health, and extreme poverty. And we basically have 2 core components to our program. We actually help individuals with the support of APD. They can actually divert individuals to our program instead of arresting them for committing quality of life issues. And also, we are happy that the community can also contact 311 if they're seeing anyone who is experiencing quality of life issues. So basically, if you as a community member, if you see someone perhaps in front of a building, someone who is potentially panhandling, you can actually contact 311. And the 311 agent's just going to ask you a few quick questions. And at that point, the 311 agent will contact our team, and our team will arrive at the scene and provide support and resources to that individual. Next slide, please. So unfortunately, I only have a few minutes, but I wanted to just go over some data with you on where we are now. And I also pulled some data specifically towards Midtown, just to see what kind of calls we were receiving from your community. So, so far we've received 102 community referral requests through 311, and we've actually received 20 calls from the Midtown area. And of those 20 calls from the Midtown area, 8 of those calls were related to people experiencing homelessness. And 2 calls were related to individuals that were also experiencing kind of homelessness, but also maybe something was added to that. For instance, we received a call for someone walking down the street without any shoes on, or we received a call for someone being in front of a building. They wouldn't move, but they are also intoxicated. So those types of issues. We've also received calls. We received 6 calls related to disturbance. So individuals who are potentially yelling in front of a building, or just maybe causing a scene, throwing a stick around as if it's a sword, things like that. You know, those are considered disturbance calls. So we received 6 of those calls. We received 1 call related to public indecency. You know, perhaps someone was not wearing any clothing, and the community member decided to call 311. We also received 1 call related to mental health concerns. We received 2 self-referral calls, so 2 individuals who called us in the Midtown area who needed support for themselves. And on this slide, you can just see overall our data for where we are. And as you can see in the pie chart area, the majority of our calls are related to basic needs, which is, you know, related to people experiencing homelessness. And then after that, the majority of our calls were related to people experiencing mental health concerns. And so people, and I just want to mention this, that, you know, a person can experience mental health concerns, but it's important for us to accept people who are able to consent. We are a consent-based program, and we want to make sure people understand, you know, our program. We want to make sure people understand what they're basically signing up for. But that, just because, and I want to give an example, if someone is perhaps yelling in front of a building, we will still respond to those calls, because, you know, that doesn't mean that they're not able to consent. So still definitely call 311 for any types of calls related to mental health or disturbance issues. We'll make that determination once we arrive at the scene whether or not a person can consent. All right, so next slide, please. So I wanted to just give a testimonial. I wanted to provide Larry's testimonial and also give you a success story from someone in the Midtown area. So Larry, he wasn't particularly from the Midtown area, but he was diverted to us in April, and now we're able to provide him with permanent housing, and he also receives wraparound services. Now, Larry, he spent quite a bit of time in the criminal legal system. So this is great news for us that, you know, we were able to support him, and he was able to work with us and accomplish those goals. And now he's on a different track. But I also wanted to tell you about a call that we received from a MARTA bus driver in the Midtown area. There was a lady experiencing homelessness, and she stayed on the bus. She didn't know where to go, so she had a dog with her, and the bus driver contacted 311. 311 contacted us. We were able to provide a crate for the dog, but then also we were able to purchase a bus ticket for that person to go home to Florida. And she contacted us the next day to let us know that she was reconnected with her family. So please, Midtown community, contact 311 if you see those quality of life issues. We are willing and we are ready to help and support those individuals. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. We appreciate you joining us today and giving us the update on PAD. Brad is the executive director for InTown Collaborative Ministries. We do a lot of work with them and sure appreciate their partnership. Brad, if you'll tell us what's going on with you guys.
Sure. Thanks for the invitation. Good to talk with y'all. So our agency is focused on two areas of concern: homelessness and hunger. We run a food pantry out of Druid Hills Presbyterian Church on Ponce, just east of Midtown. And then we have the largest homeless outreach team in the city of Atlanta. It's actually 5 separate teams that are focused on some kind of particular corners of homelessness around the city. But we've got 14 staff people who are out on the streets 5 days a week, trying to engage, assess, enroll, navigate, and then hopefully help people exit homelessness. So just going to tell you a little bit about kind of some of the big picture of what the city's doing right now, especially in this pandemic, and how that relates to Midtown. So I'll start here by saying it's very simple, but it's true that housing is the solution to homelessness. There's a lot of other things that go with that, but housing solves homelessness, whether that's, like Denise had mentioned, getting people reconnected with family members, or moving into supportive housing, or getting into maybe a program that has, you know, some a work component or something. But housing is what ends homelessness. So throughout the city, you might have heard there's been a couple articles in the AJC, a little WABE story, talking about the use of CARES Act fundings that the city's been focusing on specifically on ending homelessness for. We're now up to, as of last week, we had 450 people who were unsheltered, who were homeless in the city of Atlanta. 450 people have moved into permanent housing, not shelters, but permanent housing. Another 120 people were pending. Again, this is all from CARES Act funds. We got essentially $19 million from the federal government, local philanthropy and business community chipped in about another $5 million. We've been running the Ramada Hotel, the former Ramada Hotel over on Capitol Avenue and I-20 as kind of bridge housing. So as our outreach team or another outreach team might come across someone who's experiencing homelessness, who is eligible for permanent housing, but that housing might be, you know, might be 3 or 4 weeks away. This hotel has been a great option to move people directly from wherever they're sleeping into the hotel. They've got free meals a day. They've got their own, you know, their own hotel room with support services there while they are moving then to permanent housing. So that has been an incredible success. Again, 450 people since the beginning of December. So typically the city of Atlanta might only move 300 people or so in a year into permanent housing. So this is an incredible effort. It's, you know, we're like a lot of sectors of life these days. We're learning as we go, but some big successes right there. We, you know, Denise had mentioned, you know, the idea of PAD is to divert people and get them out of the system. So again, what we're looking to do is, as an outreach team, to engage people, build some trust, find out who people are, what are their barriers, and then navigate them out of homelessness. There's really, you know, you can end homelessness for people, or you can displace people. If people get displaced, they move to another part of town, and so now the other part of town has a problem, and then they get moved to another part, and they kind of keep going around. Meanwhile, all of our taxpayer dollars continue to have them go to Grady, have them get arrested, go to the, you know, go in front of courts when they're open, all of that stuff. So the focus for us is on getting people off the streets into permanent housing. The CARES Act funds, again, has really allowed us to have access to resources that are incredible. We're still, you know, this $1.9 trillion relief package that the Biden administration just passed. We're still working on exactly what that is going to look like for Georgia and Atlanta and for Midtown. But we need more housing. We're the normal point in time count that happens every year that actually is like the one official number that every jurisdiction across the country tracks one night a year. That was this past January. In the pandemic, we couldn't do that. So it's really difficult to get apples to apples comparisons on what does homelessness look like. But the signs that we do have right now are that homelessness, even as we are about to place 600 people into housing, we have had an additional 600 people who have entered our system that we don't know exactly where they have come from. So we're doing an incredible job, but gosh, almost as many people as we're putting into housing are now coming into the system as new folks. And this is, we're trying to learn, again, not having access to the same data that we normally do. We're trying to learn who these people are, how is it that we can get to know folks, find out what the right solutions for them are, and then get them moved into permanent housing. So just a quick update. And again, thanks for y'all's participation. A few weeks ago, we did have an outreach event, getting to know people, just on a practical level, safety, of course. But as people who are living in Midtown, if you come across people experiencing homelessness and you feel safe, say hello, get to know somebody, get to know somebody's name. The pathway out of homelessness every time involves relationships. Sometimes it's professional social workers, sometimes it's the Midtown Blue folks, sometimes it might be you. So I encourage folks to get to know people, talk to people. This pandemic's a really tough time for lots of us, and who knows where that relationship might go. So thanks for the invitation to talk with you all tonight.
Thank you so much, Brad. That was a great update and a lot of good successes. As we move on, Major Span is our commander for the Zone 5 area. We work closely with her and she's got an update for us. Go ahead, Major Span. Thank you for coming.
Hey everyone. So first of all, Marcus took all of my talking points, so I'm left with very few to discuss. But nevertheless, we are great partners and we do work together consistently. Actually, everybody on this call is a great partner to APD, and we certainly can't do anything that we do alone or by ourselves. I mean, given the climate that we're in today, given the short staff that we're in, we certainly appreciate all the assistance that you all provide us with, so thank you. Just a couple of things that Marcus did not go over is what APD is doing to enforce some of those car break-ins, and that's really just partnering up with some of our outside agencies as well as internal to really go after those prolific violators. Actually, we are on a SWAT call right now if you stay somewhere near Centennial Park. And that's going to be one of our perpetrators or suspects that has stolen a car. So we consistently are always modifying our efforts, trying to go after those bad guys and making sure that we zero in on who those specific violators are so that we can go ahead and secure warrants. Now, once we've done that, we have seen a decrease in our numbers, specifically for the Midtown area. What we've also done to try to decrease the larceny from autos and the car break-ins, we have what is known as our traffic unit. And some of you all may have seen a piece on the news, as well as some of the meetings that I think Marcus featured with Midtown Blue. But it's 6 officers, 1 sergeant, 1 lieutenant, and they focus on those hot spots. Right now, specifically the Midtown area, where they are going around just really making it uncomfortable for those suspects and perpetrators to come into our space and try to break into cars and steal cars. So although we can do something about making sure our vehicles are clear, making sure we cut off the vehicles when we're going in different stores, we definitely still have our officers out and approaching this in a different way. I know some of you probably don't necessarily want to hear about that because you may have been complaining recently about loud muffler noises, ATVs, as well as some of the drag racers, and that certainly has been an issue for Zone 5 for quite some time. Again, we realized that Zone 5 officers couldn't do it alone. Our call volume is extremely high, so we, of course, requested the assistance of our auto crimes unit, which they come out on specifically on Sundays. We see the start of where these ATV riders start It looks like they oftentimes congregate near the Beltline, which is close to Travis Street. They congregate there and then they just take the city by storm. And so what we've done is we've tried to be smart about it. We've used some of our new technological toys and electronics to kind of follow them until we see that they have a break-in service where they may need some gas or they may stop for a snack, and we take them into custody just like that. And so with that said, I think during NBA All-Star Weekend, we were able to arrest at least 6 of those individuals. I would say that some of those dirt bikes are coming back stolen, but as you all know, it's not necessarily that easy for officers to stop. As you all know, we have a zero chase policy. We don't want the officers to be hurt, and neither do we want innocent bystanders to be hurt. So we have to do this the smart way, and that's the way that we're trying to alleviate or disrupt the issue with the ATVs. The same thing for the drag racers. To date, we've cited at least 160 people for drag racing. Right now, we worked out something with the courts where they will now be jailed for drag racing. Once they are in jail, they have to see a judge in order to make bond. And we're seeing great success with that, in addition to the fines that they may have to pay. But we're starting to see great success. Even with the ATVs, our numbers, where once upon a time, we saw 150 ATV riders, or we even saw like 150 cars. Now we're seeing 10 to 20. So we know that the message is getting out to those who are really being a violator in our space. And we know that definitely it's discouraging that behavior. And that's what we want. We want to make it uncomfortable for those that come to Zone 5 and commit those type of crimes. In addition to that, I will say during NBA All-Star Weekend, I guess if I can talk about that a little bit, NBA All-Star Weekend, I know we did see a spike in crime. Specifically, our violent crime was a little alarming. We did see a couple of shootings. And with that said, a couple of them, I will say, had nothing to do with NBA All-Star Weekend. Very few of them did. We did see a lot of people from out of town, but I will say the APD was on 12-hour shifts during that time. We had them strategically placed in front of, whether it had been clubs, whether it was in front of gas stations, whether it was in front of different restaurants, to again modify the behavior of our suspects that we know we would have seen a lot more criminal activity had we not strategically placed those officers in those particular areas. So although our numbers were up a little bit, we still know that we could have certainly seen a lot more than what we saw that past weekend. And that's pretty much about it. I think, Marcus, you covered everything else. I'm happy to say that the partnerships with the Sheriff's Department and the courts are still ongoing, and we are starting to see them come back, and we are really voicing our concerns to the sheriff as well as our partners at municipal court to just let them know that we really need the people that are facing these particular violations and repeat offenders. If they don't want services such as PAD, Denise, then we certainly are encouraging them to keep them in the jails and make them answer for the violations that they've committed in our zone. And with that, I'll take any questions.
And it was perfect timing. It's 5:45. It's amazing how fast 45 minutes goes. We weren't able to get to some questions. Some of the ones that we're able to answer ourselves, you're going to get an email back from us with our best effort to answer your questions. And so we'll make every effort to do that. We'll continue to have more of these along the way. I will point your attention to the handout section of the toolbar here. There's handouts that Denise provided on the PAD program. There's a copy of the slide deck that you've seen today. There's a clean car flyer. And there's an overview on Midtown Blue. There'll be a survey immediately when you close out of this webinar, so please take it and help us make improvements as we go. And Denise, Brad, Major Span, thank you so much for joining us and giving up your evening to keep us all updated as to what's going on. It's interesting and challenging times, but it's also a time when there's a whole lot of good things happening, and we appreciate all your efforts in that regard. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.